Hey guys, welcome to the College Lead YouTube channel. Today we have a very special guest, Jane. Jane and I met through a Harvard Franklin Fellowship that's focused on tech and social impact. And Jane has a lot to share in those particular areas. So if you're interested in learning more, stay tuned and watch to the end of the video. But before I get started with the questions, Jane, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. So this is me, Jane, and I'm a student at Georgia Tech going into my final year. So I went to high school in India, so the north of India, in Chandigarh. So I went to a really private Catholic high school. I had a really good time there, and then I came here to Georgia Tech for my undergrad degree in materials engineering as part of the Grand Challenges Scholars Program.
I have to ask about this, but you told me about how you have your own startup. So what do you do with your startup? How did you find out about the idea? Who did you build it with? Give me the whole story.
Right. So as an immigrant in the US, I think I always knew that if I was going to go halfway across the world away from my family, and get a degree at an institution like Georgia Tech, I had to make the most of my resources because you're paying so much, so you just want to make the most out of what you have. And so during my freshman year, I really wanted to explore everything so that I could decide this is what my next 4 years are going to look like, and beyond. And so I found this really interesting webinar at the time for biomimicry and biomimetics. And so I attended it. And that's how I got a team together and started Full Circle. Very typical story. Started in my freshman dorm, typical story. And so we wanted to solve the energy problem. So we wanted to solve like the turbine problem, but then we ended up switching to mental health because the turbine project did really well on the International Biomimicry Design Challenge. But then I realized I came back and I had just, spent some time at Harvard doing research as well. And I came back and I realized mental health is huge for colleges and university students. And so we made the very hard decision to switch and pivot to making technologies for mental health. And so that's what I do for my startup. But yeah, I wanted to have something consistent over the 4 years and after I graduated, so I picked that.
That is amazing. Before I dive more into your startup, I would love to ask what advice you might have for any viewers who are interested in entrepreneurship and building their own business.
I don't know, what advice to give because I don't consider myself successful. I feel like when you're 21, 20, you're an immigrant in the US, and the climate is as such, that things are not going to be easy for you. The odds are always going to be stacked against you. So you should really put your mind into first understanding why you want to be an entrepreneur. If it's to solve problems, like real problems that you don't think anyone else is solving, then good for you. But if you just want to do it because it sounds cool, then don't do it because it's going to be really hard. So just don't mess around. I think finding the right partner to do it with is also really important because if they're really good with their studies and with their, their resume looks great, but they don't have a good heart, you're just never gonna do well with a startup. You need to have a really solid co-founder, founder, or just someone, whoever you have on your team. You have to have a really solid team because it's not easy doing startup.
It's not easy, and I agree with that advice. There is always that temptation to just build a company because being an entrepreneur is the thing that's trending right now and starting your own business, but it's a huge responsibility to take on to work with other team members. If you hire anyone, you are responsible for paying income for a particular employee and for their well-being and everything, and it's a lot of responsibility to take on. So I think the idea of thinking about, am I doing this just for the clout, or am I doing this because I'm really passionate about the problem, is a huge consideration many students should have.
And Kristen, I saw this in your blog and I thought it was really interesting, which is why I'll point it out because I feel like it's really on spot, is that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs get into it because they get this sort of stage and platform to, be public speakers because of it and, raise money because of it and things of that sort. And I feel like that attracts people much more than the hard work that goes into it and solving problems. I feel like that's a lot of fake traction that comes through, which you pointed out in your blog. So I think everyone should read Kristen's blog.
Thanks. I'll link it below. And if you guys or my viewers want to learn more about my experience with this startup, comment below if you want me to make a video on that. Thus far, I've been focused on college prep, but I'm happy to talk about that too, if that's something you're interested in.
friend. I'm saying it because it's genuinely a good law. But
Oh, thank you. Learned a lot through that experience, but yeah, now I am super curious to hear what inspired you to make that pivot to mental health.
I was at so I had finished my second year, I think, at Georgia Tech, yes, and then I was at the Weiss at Harvard for research, right? And then I came back, and that was when we had finished the turbine project, won the biomimicry challenge. Things were going well, and then a couple of my friends had to set up appointments with the counseling center to get an appointment to just check in, and because they were going through a tough time. And then I realized they came back and told me that the waiting times at large when we researched this were 2 to 3 weeks, right? That's like,
Oh yeah.
that's insane. So didn't that didn't sit well with me. And I think that was the time that I realized that there's no point making another turbine, if this very big problem just sits there and no one does anything about it. I didn't see a lot of people talk a lot about mental health, do a lot about mental health, especially in the core tech center of things. So I wanted to do that. Yeah. That's when I decided to make the pivot.
That is an amazing story. And I'm sure it also took a lot of courage to make that pivot too, because that just changes entirely what you guys are working on.
Yeah, and I think I've been pretty open about my own experiences, and I talked about it in my TED Talk. I feel like the more open you are about solving a problem, the faster you get to solving it, right? Like the world could be so different if we just talked openly about our issues, and found like a joint solution to come to. But yeah, it's sad, but hopefully through this thing that we have going on, we can solve some problems.
Yeah. FYI, I'll be linking your TED Talk in the description. So guys, if you want to watch it, check it out. I'm sure you will learn a lot. It is an amazing TED Talk. But so now you pivoted to a new idea. How do you get started with addressing the problem? Did you choose to address the wait line, or sorry, not wait line, the waiting room issue or something else? How did you decide which angle to go about this at?
I think we wanted to pick the biggest problem in the room and then solve it, right? So the biggest problem was that the wait times were just too long, and that, a lot of mental health issues could be prevented, right? If you just had someone to talk to, and if you had a good support system, then you wouldn't have to get to the point of, in some cases, you wouldn't have to get to the point of saying, I need to see a counselor now, or I'm suicidal now, right? If you just have a support system, a lot of things can be mitigated. And so we wanted to be that kind of support system for students. So yes, we're trying to support reducing the pressure on counseling centers, because I feel like more people are open to even going to counseling centers now, which has increased the pressure on counseling centers. And it's not really their fault, there's just been an increase in the demand, and so the supply chain is sort of broken, right? Because there's a lot of demand and there's not enough supply. So that being said, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to provide resources for students so that they don't have to burden the counseling center later on, as a collective whole. So that's what we're trying to do.
What is the product that you guys are building? Is it a adjacent or supplementary counseling service or something else?
Right. So it's not a counseling service. It's just a mental well-being check-in, and it's just a bunch of resources that you can use. For example, we have a community feature where you can ask different questions about financial stress or things that cause financial stress, academic stress, COVID-19 related stress. We have an entire section on that. Then there's a section, speed ranting, right? You can rant to your phone, and the phone will analyze whatever you're saying, and will give you like real-time feedback, like I'm listening to you, I know that this is a problem, and then it will link you to resources in that way based on what you ranted about, right? So these are just a couple of features that I've named that are like mental well-being resources for students, right? And on the other side, we're trying to find a way to make the scheduling for counseling centers more easy and objective. Because right now you walk into a counseling center and say, I'm not feeling so great, or I'm suicidal, and then they schedule appointments accordingly. It's very subjective. There's nothing objective about it. There are no facts, right? Someone could just come in and say, I'm feeling bad, but really be in a bad mental headspace. and not talk about it. So we wanted to make it more objective, which is why we're doing something called digital phenotyping as well, which is you leave digital biomarkers, right, on your phone. The way you behave with your phone can be very indicative of like your mental health at the time. And there's been some proof of that. So we wanted to use that proof-based evidence as a way to schedule appointments with the counseling center. So we're also a scheduling service in one way.
I think that is amazing. Do you guys have a website or an application that I can link in the description for students to learn more about what you do?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Okay. Perfect. I will link that also in the description, so be sure to check it out. I think that is honestly such a great problem that you guys are working to solve, and it's a great mission for the company to go after, and it's very much needed, especially now. So very impressed. I'm kind of curious though, what is something or a few things that you wish you knew about the startup life that you had known before you became a founder?
Oh boy.
So maybe a few things.
I have made so many mistakes. I think the best advice that I would give to my younger self, looking back at 2017, when I was starting out, is it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. And it's best to, for people outside, it's best to dip your feet and try something and make mistakes and then learn from the mistakes instead of asking people constantly for advice, you know. And the second thing I would say is network with your peers, not with people who are already 20 years ahead of you or are the VPs or something, right? I see a lot of people, they want to get meetings with the chief executive officer of XYZ Corporation, right? And I feel like that's an ineffective way of networking. I feel like building your network should be with your peers because those are the people that you're going to grow with, right? Which is also why I applied to the Harvard Franklin Fellowship, is because you want to grow with your peers. I feel like I would change that about myself going back to 2017. I learned that really early on, and I'm grateful for that. Someone told me about this in my mentor circle, and that stuck with me. And the third thing is find a good guru, you know, find a good mentor, because they can really help you. I have 2 or 3 fixed mentors that I go to for specific problems. You know, my mom is my biggest mentor in my personal life, but she's not someone I will go to for startup advice, you know, right now, especially because it's a tech startup. So I have different mentors, and I feel like if I had only known in 2017 how valuable that would be to me, I would place much more emphasis on it then rather than doing it now. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is all really great advice. And I know that I have a few students who are interested in business and entrepreneurship and even in biology or neuroscience. So this is all very much relevant to them. So just saying thank you to you on their behalf for sharing your tips and tricks. Okay, so now that we're coming towards the end of the interview, I just want to make sure I capture everything you wanted to say. So are there any last words you would like to leave our viewers with?
It's okay to make mistakes. I feel like a lot of people, when they're applying to colleges and when they get back their decisions, and this is for everyone who's going to get back their decisions, you know, I didn't even put in 2 thoughts into where to apply, and my life has worked out just fine. You know, it doesn't matter really where you go. If you're in the top couple of schools, it really doesn't matter. What matters is what you make out of what you have. Even if you don't go to a top school, and I will say this on record, even if you don't go to a top school, you can easily in the US tailor your life to being what it needs to be. I've seen a lot of people who, I mean, I've been at Harvard, I've been at Georgia Tech, I've been at ETH. I've seen a lot of people who don't even go to these schools who make it big in so many different ways, and I'm friends with a lot of them, you know. And at Harvard, I mean, of course, everyone is super genius at everyone at Georgia Tech is building some new technology that no one's ever heard of. So it's great to be around those people. So apply to places where you think you will fit in instead of applying to places where you think you're trying to fit in, is my thing. Be who you are. I mean, I'm wearing cat ears in an interview about college applications. I don't think I can be.
I love it.
You know, be who you are, and if the world doesn't like it, then there's a billion more than 1 billion people in the world. There's other people to move on to. So go where you need to be and things will work out.
I love that. And on that awesome note, and also with the cat ears, thank you guys so much for watching this video. And Jane, thank you for your time and sharing all of your advice and your story here. It's very inspiring. And for the viewers out there, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. And don't forget to check out the links that I'll put in the description.
Subscribe to Christian's channel. You must subscribe. I'm watching. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.